If the paperwork is correct in front of me, when we finish today, we will be halfway home for this legislative session. Is the paperwork correct? Are we, yep, day 20. Chairman over here tells me that is correct.
Day 20.
All right, the time for convening has arrived and the Senate will now come to order. I'd like to ask that all unauthorized persons exit the chamber. It's my honor to recognize the senator with knowledge of much trivia, but master of none.
Indeed. Mr. President, it is a beautiful day at the Capitol, outside and in. As you know, the men and women under your excellent leadership are ready to do business for the people of Georgia. I don't have really any exciting thing to say except Mrs. Kirk is here today, and she brings such beauty and dignity and glory to our chamber. We're glad to have her. The journal's been read and found to be correct, Mr. President.
Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? Chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 446 by Senator Walker of the 20th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Code Section 1764 of OCGA relating to the authorization of posting cash bonds generally, furnishing a receipt to person posting bonds.
Public safety.
Senate Bill 447 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Code Section 22161.2 of the OCGA relating to work-based learning programs, legislative intent, participation, standards.
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 448 by Senator Sims of the 12th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 15 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to county law libraries so as to allow county governing
State
authorities.
and local government general.
Senate Bill 449 by Senator Wilkinson of the 50th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 4 of Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to carrying and possession of firearms so as to exempt weapons
Judiciary.
carried. Senate Bill 450 by Senator Harper of the 7th. A bill to be titled an act to amend an act to reconstitute the Ocilla-Irwin County Industrial Development Authority approved May 3rd.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 451 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 3 of Title 9 of the OCGA relating to limitations on recovery for deficiencies connected with improvements.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 452 by Senators Kennedy of the 18th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 6, Title 5, and Article 5 of Chapter 7 of Title 17 of the OCGA relating to appellate practice and arraignment and pleas generally, respectfully.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 453 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding courts so as to provide for statutory rules and procedures for the recusal.
Judiciary.
Senate Resolution 833 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others. A resolution creating the Joint Study Committee on preparing our future workforce and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 841 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that the people of this state may petition the judiciary for declaratory relief from certain acts of this state or certain local governments or officers.
Judiciary.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read first reading of House bills and resolutions, please?
House Bill 521 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 11 at Title 43 of the OCGA relating to licenses for the practice of dentistry, so as to authorize temporary licenses for dentists licensed in other
Health
states.
and Human Services.
House Bill 799 by Representative Blackman of the 146th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Article 3A of Chapter 5 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to suspension of license for being in control of a moving vehicle.
Judiciary.
House Bill 893 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Code Section 33-117 of the OCGA.
Insurance and labor.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had in consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 306, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 323, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 372, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 395, due pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Watson of the 1st District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 429, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 435, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Stone of the 23rd District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 407, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 384, due pass by substitute. respectfully submitted by Senator Harper of the 7th District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and is instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 301, due passed by substitute. Senate Bill 393, due passed by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Albers of the 56th District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Retirement Committee has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 248, due passed by substitute. Senate Bill 249, due passed by substitute. Senate Bill 271, due pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Black of the 8th District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Resolution 644, due pass. Senate Resolution 645, due pass. Senate Resolution 717, due pass. Senate Resolution 722, due pass. Senate Resolution 769, due pass. Senate Resolution 793, due pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Mullis of 53rd District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 967, due pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Anderson of the 24th District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate State and Institutions and Property Committee has under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 350, due pass. House Resolution 326, due pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Harbison of the 15th District, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Urban Affairs has under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 278, due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 333, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Jackson of the 2nd District, Chair. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read bills and resolutions for the second time?
Senate Bill 226 by Senator Robertson, the 29th. Use of safety belts in passenger vehicles. All occupants of a passenger vehicle shall be restrained by a seat safety belt. Provide. Senate Bill 346 by Senator Black of the 8th and others. State Board of Veterinary Medicine. Membership increase. Registered veterinary technician member. Authorize. Senate Bill 394 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others. Attorney General. Authority to investigate and prosecute certain crimes and offenses. Provide. Senate Bill 396 by Senator Walker of the 20th and others. State symbols. Pecan as the official state nut. Designate. Senate Bill 402 by Senator Robinson the 29th and others. Bonds, recognitions for unsecured judicial release on a person's own recognizance. Provide. Senate Bill 413 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others. Conflicts of interest in zoning actions. Definition of term applicant. Expand. House Bill 765 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th and others. Courts increase the minimum compensation of chief magistrates. Provide. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, it's now time for our morning roll call. It is now time for morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 6th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 6th is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? 3, 2, 1. Secretary will call. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th.
Ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 36th.
Without
Business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 36th is excused. Any other additional motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 11th.
Without objection, the senator from the 11th is excused. All right, here we go. The secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary will unlock the machine. All right, it's now time for our morning devotional. And I'd like to ask that all senators please take your seats. All senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. Also, I'd like to ask our doorkeepers to secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize a senator from the 25th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Please rise for our flag. Pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our state flag, pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President, for the introduction, and thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to be with you today and introduce our chaplain of the day. I think this is a gentleman that is, most everyone in this room is very familiar with. It's Dr. Benny Tate. Dr. Benny Tate is my pastor. He pastors Rock Springs Church down in Milner, Georgia, which is actually in the district of Senator from the 16s, but he's my pastor, and he's been there for almost a little over 30 years now. And it's taken a 25-person church congregation and turned it into an 8,000-member church that serves over 20, where they have people from over 20 different counties every Sunday that show up and attend the three services that they have. They have an 8 and a 9:30 and a 11 o'clock service. And Pastor Tate has had many accomplishments, and they've done a lot of good work in Middle Georgia. But probably the thing he is the most proud of is the Christian Academy that they started less than 10 years ago now. And we have some of the young 8th graders here with us today, 25 of them to be exact, that are here today to experience their time here at the Capitol. And he has taken that startup school, and the enrollment for next year is going to reach almost 600 students. And I'd like to say, because of the church and all they do, it is the most affordable private Christian academy in the state of Georgia. They are very conscious about keeping the tuition down because they want to provide a great environment to educate young people of all walks of life who just want to have parents that want to try to send them to a good Christian organization and have it not just a good education, but have a good environment to study in. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Pastor of the Day, Dr. Benny Tate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. Great to be here today, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate your service to our state, and it's just an honor. I'm thrilled with the invitation and appreciate the Lieutenant Governor and everyone involved allowing us to be here today. How many of you say, Pastor, I've never heard you before? Can we slip your hand up? Never heard you before. Never heard you before. That's it. Okay. All right. Never heard you before. Well, most of you have, and if you haven't heard me, I say to you what Elizabeth Taylor said to her 8th husband, I'm not going to keep you long. Amen? All right. But I would like to share some scriptures with you that I believe will be a help to you. And I so appreciate Bert Jones, and he shared with me. He's one of the most respected men in the Capitol. And boy, they're laughing a long time, Bert. You know what I tell you? All right. I want to share some scriptures with you from Psalms chapter 8, verses 3 and 4. This is what the Bible says. It says, when I consider the heavens and the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him, or the son of man that thou carest for him? For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and thou hast crowned him with glory and honor. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands, and thou hast put all things under his feet. I want to take just a few moments, and I want to talk to you about life's number one question. Life's number one question. The USA Today a few years ago polled 2,000 people. And they asked 2,000 people, if you could ask God, this omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, sovereign being, if you could ask God one question, what would that question be? And the number one answer was this. People said they would ask God, why am I on this earth? Why am I on this earth? And I thought about if that's life's number one question, I think there's three statements that can really help with that question of why I'm on this earth. First of all, let me say this. God made you a unique person. God made you a unique person. You know, there may be accidental parents, but there are no accidental children because we're wonderfully and gloriously made by God. I don't want to be like the person that said, once I was a tadpole, beginning to begin, and then I was a frog with my tail tucked in, and then I was a monkey in a banana tree, and now I'm a professor with a PhD. No, I don't believe that. I believe that we're wonderfully and gloriously created by God. The Bible says right here that we're a little lower than the angels. And I'd rather say we were created a little lower than the angels than a little higher than the monkeys. We were wonderfully and gloriously created by God. God created the world, the rocks, the reels, the hoes, the hills, the birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees. God created it all. And God created you, and God created you a unique person. And that's why I encourage people, just be who God made you to be. Be who you is, because if you is who you ain't who you is. Just be who God made you to be. Years ago, I married to who I believe is the greatest Christian in the world. We've been married for 35 years. Brother Jack made a pact years ago that we would never go to bed upset at each other. In 35 years of marriage, we never have. Now, we've stayed up for 2 or 3 days at a time, but we've never gone to bed upset at each other. But my wife went through a deal where there was an actor by the name of Brad Pitt. And every time I'd come home, she'd be watching Brad Pitt. And finally, I got frustrated with it, and one day I just stood in front of the television. And I said, Barbara, if you took away his money, if you took away his muscular body, if you took away his good looks, what would you have? She said, I'd have you. Amen? And what I've learned is comparing ourselves among ourselves is not wise, because God made every one of us a unique person. And because you're a unique person, you have God's attention and you have God's affection. Now, God made you a unique person, and God put in you a unique passion. God put a passion inside of every one of us. An older lady was running a perfume counter on one occasion, and a young lady walked up to the perfume counter and said to that older lady behind the counter, do you have Elizabeth Taylor's passion? She said, honey, if I did, I wouldn't be working here. Passion. You know, Sir Winston Churchill was asked, Sir Winston Churchill, why did you get into politics? And I love his honesty. He said, ambition. Ambition. A politician sat in my office not long ago, and he said, Pastor, do you know the cure for political ambition? I said, I really don't. He said, embalming fluid. But they asked Sir Winston Churchill, why did you get into politics? He said, ambition. And then they said, Sir Winston, why did you stay in politics? He said, anger. Anger. It was a passion to make things better. That's why Abraham Lincoln stood on the docks of New Orleans and saw a beautiful young black girl sold into slavery and took one hand and dug it into the other hand so the hand began to bleed. And Abraham Lincoln said, by the help of God, someday I'll do something about that. And by the help of God, he did. God made every one of you a unique person. And God's given all of us a unique passion because God made us for a unique purpose. God made you just like you are. God's given you the passion that's in your heart so you can do the purpose that He wants you to do. Mark Twain said 20 years from now, we'll have more regrets over the things we didn't do than over the things we did. I pray we can all be like the great Apostle Paul and say in 2 Timothy chapter 4, I've fought a good fight. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord the righteous judge shall give me at that day, not to me only, but to all them also that love His appearing. I'm a practitioner of the Word of God. I study theology. One of my favorite theologians was a man named Yogi Berra. And Yogi Berra said, you better go to other people's funerals so they'll come to your funeral. But Yogi Berra was playing hindcatcher on one occasion, and a man walked up to the batter's box. His name was Henry Aaron, Hammer and Hank. And Henry Aaron stood to bat, and Yogi Berra was trying to talk trash. And he said, Hank, you're not holding the bat properly. You should hold the bat so you can read the trademark. About that time, the pitcher pitched the pitch. And Hank took that bat and he knocked that ball a country mile. And then he looked back at Yogi and he said, I didn't come here to read. I came here to bat. And the secret to life, Henry Ford said, is to find out what you're destined to do and do it. Ladies and gentlemen, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. I mean that. I admire and respect all of you for your service. I admire Senator Jones. When I was a little boy, my mother used to take me to hear him speak. I admire all of you. And I simply want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. This is a sacrifice. God made you a unique person. God's put in you a unique passion because God's created you for a unique purpose. And I simply say thank you, and I want the privilege of praying for you right now. Lord, as we bow our heads and our hearts in your presence, God, many times we refer to the people that are standing before me as politicians. But in Romans chapter 13, you referred to them as ministers. And what they are doing is just that. It's a ministry. It's a service. So I pray, Lord, that you will give them strength, encouragement, wisdom. Abraham Lincoln said, I've been driven to my knees by an overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go. My wisdom and all about me seemed insufficient in the day. God, give them your wisdom. But not only do I pray for the men and women that stand before me and stand behind me, I pray for their families. Because not only are they sacrificing to serve our state and to serve you, but their families are also sacrificing. So I ask you to encourage their hearts today. I simply pray blessing upon this body. Would you bless them and keep them? Make your face to shine upon them, be gracious unto them. Lift your countenance upon them, and may they experience your peace. For I pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you.
All right, we're going to introduce our doctor of the day here, and I'd like to call upon the senator from the 52nd to do so.
Y'all come on up here. Okay, come on up here. We've got Dr. Brad Bushnell here today. He has been the doctor of the day here before, has graduated from the Medical Association's physician leadership here. Dr. Bushnell is originally from Athens, Georgia area, where his father is still a lawyer over there and knows a few of those others in that area as well. He went to undergraduate at Vanderbilt and then went to the Medical College of Georgia and then the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for his orthopedic surgery residency. He also has an MBA from Auburn University as well. He's the chair of the Department of Orthopedics and Sports Medicine at Harbin Clinic in Rome, which is the largest private physician group in the state of Georgia. And he serves as the lead team physician for the Rome Braves, and he's also an assistant clinical professor of orthopedic surgery at the medical college. He's on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club. He is a board of trustees for Berry College, a reserve sheriff's deputy and SWAT team member there. And he and his wife, Kim, have 2 children, Bo and Sarah Beth. And I will add that Bo's 13 now. When he was 3 years old, he did the opening pitch for the Rome Braves game, and he threw a strike. And I've seen somebody on the other side that bounced it to the plate up there, so I'm just saying he was an early athlete. But anyway, our doctor of the day, Brad Bushnell.
Thanks, Chuck. So thank you all. It's an honor to be here again, and I guess my biggest request is my son is paging for y'all today, so please give him a hard time. His little mini-me up here. He was recently on a trip to D.C. where I got to be a chaperone, and where one of my partners is running for Congress up there. And as we were going near the Capitol, one of the kids in the group said, "So what's the big difference between this Capitol and the one we have back home?" And I said, "Well, back home we get things done. You know, the biggest sickness facing our country right now is not coronavirus. It's hyperpartisanship, one of the symptoms of which is paralysis, both for the government and for the country. And so I just want to commend this body for getting it done. Passing a bill in my world, in the healthcare sphere, unanimously is something to really be proud of in this day and age. So thank each of you for your, not just your service, but the example that you're setting for all of us and including our youth. It's an honor to be here today, and I thank you for your time."
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution for our first set of special guests?
Senate Resolution 822 by Senator Davenport of the 44th and others. A resolution recognizing February 27th, 2020 as Spelman College Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas founded in 1881 as the Atlanta Baptist Female Seminary, this distinguished institution became Spelman College in 1924. Whereas Spelman College boasts a graduation rate of 76%, which is one of the best in the nation, and has a student body comprised of nearly 2,100 students from 43 states and 10 foreign countries. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that the outstanding accomplishments of this extraordinary college be appropriately recognized. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize February 27th, 2020 as Spelman College Day at the state capitol and extend their most sincere best wishes for continued health and happiness. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 44th to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am so honored today to recognize Spelman College. It is Spelman College Day at the Georgia State Capitol. This premier institution was founded in 1881, and we have done amazing things since that time. Our 10th president, Dr. Mary Smith Campbell, leads the organization, the college there. And today I have on the stage with her is Adrian Lance Lucas, raise your hand, Tara Buckner, Pam Cooper, Kiana Perino. I would be remiss if I did not recognize some of our leaders that have once graced these halls in the Georgia General Assembly. I'm not sure if they're here today, but Alicia Thomas Morgan, Attorney Henrietta Turnquist, Judge Betty Ann Hart, and of course Minority Leader Stacey Abrams. We are so delighted to have Spelman here, and our college boasts a graduation rate of 76%, which is one of the best in the nation. Also, our student body consists of 2,100 students from 43 states and 10 foreign countries. We have other alumni of Spelman College in the audience. Would you please stand at this time? Spelman College, give them a warm Senate welcome. Thank you, ladies. At this time, I'm going to ask the 10th president of Spelman College, Dr. Mary Smith Campbell, if she will come and give some remarks.
Thank you so much, Senator Davenport. We are really honored to be here this morning and to receive this recognition. Thank you for the invitation. I'm here this morning representing the entire Spelman community. I want to acknowledge again all my Spelman sisters who are up there. Please stand. I'm going to acknowledge you again. Thank you. And my Spelman leaders who are behind me. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Georgia legislature for everything you do to support higher education. The Hope Scholarships, the Zell Miller Scholarships, your support of dual enrollment for high school students, all of these measures help our residents succeed in higher education and in their life. And this is a critical moment. This is a time when Georgia and Atlanta in particular have the opportunity to be the tech center of the world. We need highly skilled, highly trained, highly educated graduates. And Spelman College is very proud to be in the forefront of that effort. Spelman graduates more Black women who complete PhDs in STEM fields than any other college or university in the country. So thank you for all you do to support higher education. If you need us anytime, please just call on us. Thank you.
Let's go down here and take some pictures. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution for our next special guest today?
Senate Resolution 730 by Senator Henson of the 41st and others. A resolution recognizing February 13th, 2020 as New Americans Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Georgia is home to more than 1 million immigrants who comprise approximately 10% of the state population and contribute to Georgia's unique culture and diversity. And whereas foreign-born Georgians contributed approximately $8 billion in local, state, and federal taxes and held nearly $22 billion in spending power in 2017 alone. And whereas Georgia is a welcoming home for all peoples of all origins from all walks of life, and is abundantly fitting and proper that these new Americans be appropriately recognized. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize February 13th, 2020 as New Americans Day at the state capitol and commend the manifold contributions of immigrants to the state of Georgia. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Chair would like to call upon the minority leader to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. It's a great honor today to introduce people who are promoting new Americans. You know, people who are helping people learn our English language, develop and grow in our society, and promote strong families and a strong state. Behind me, there's some people from the Coalition of Refugee Service Agencies that help many of the refugees get started in our country, in our state. Joe Neal with the coalition. Ayub Mohammed with the Burmese Rohingya Community of Georgia, Mohammed Shurfig with the Burmese Rohingya Community of Georgia, Amy Zangadu with Inspiritus, and Darlene Lynch with Center for Victims of Torture in Georgia. These groups all help those that are refugees in this state. The Center for the 55th and our President Pro Tem and others who have sponsored this resolution also want to include all new Georgians, all immigrants to our state, new Americans. You know, we don't realize some days how big a community that is. About 1 in 10 Georgians are new Americans. 1 in 7 workers in Georgians are people who've immigrated to this country. 17% of the doctors in this state are new Americans. So the tremendous impact they make on our daily lives is really a fantastic and positive thing. You know, 31% of Georgia's Main Street businesses are new Americans, even though they're only 10% of our state population. Over $8 billion in local and state and federal taxes are paid, and nearly $22 billion in spending power in the year 2017 was controlled by these new immigrants to our country. So we are here to applaud and congratulate them, and I would like Jim Neal just to say a word or two. Senator Butler, you want to say anything right now? Jim Neal, would you please say a word?
Thank you, Senator Henson. On behalf of the Coalition of Refugee Service Agencies and our 21 member organizations who work in this community, to join with you and other Georgians in welcoming new Americans, we say thank you very much. Thank you for helping Georgia be a welcoming state and for all the work that you do for all the people of Georgia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Let's go here and take some pictures.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution for our next special guest?
Senate Resolution 772 by Senator James at the 35th and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Cordy Tyndall Vivian and for other purposes. Whereas C.T. Vivian was born on July 30th, 1924 in Boonville, Missouri, and whereas he is a distinguished minister, author, organizer, and leader in the civil rights movement. And whereas most recently, he was the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom awarded by President Obama on August 8th, 2013. Whereas C.T. Vivian continues to share his wisdom, love, and faith to all, and continues to be a beacon of hope and leadership to Atlanta and this great state. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend C.T. Vivian for his magnificent contributions in leadership and faith to not only the citizens of the state, but also the nation. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 35th to introduce our special guest today.
It gives me great pleasure to make this introduction and to deliver this resolution today because it's Black History Month and we're talking about a great living Black history person. I want any of you to come join me, if you will, who have been supporting the Black history. But it is a resolution for C.T. Vivian. His name is Cordy Tyndall Vivian. And he was born in Boonsville, Missouri, July 30th of 1924. He served as a minister, author, and a leader during the Civil Rights Movement, where he became friends with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He founded the Nashville Christian Leadership Conference and worked closely with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which is SCLC, both of which organized sit-ins, civil rights marches, and other peaceful protests across the Southeast. C.T. Vivian, through his work with SCLC, helped with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and he also founded the Black Action Strategies and Information Center, the C.T. Vivian Leadership Institute. And President Barack Obama awarded the highest honor that a citizen can get to Reverend C.T. Vivian. It was the Presidential Medal of Freedom back in 2013. He continues to call Georgia his home and is working hard to continue to leave his mark on the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia. And a production for Peace I Rise celebrates the story of C.T. Vivian in the form of a Broadway musical. It was produced in Georgia and looks at the civil rights movement through the lens of C.T. Vivian. For Peace I Rise is directed by playwright Thomas W. Jones. We have the producer here. We have Reverend C.T. Vivian's two sons here with us. He's a little, I guess at 93 years old or 95 years old, he couldn't get up here this morning, but he's here with us in spirit, and he sent his two favorite people, his two sons. So at this time, standing with me is Dr. Carol E. Henderson, Merrill Calloway, Amir Alas, I'm going to say C.T. Vivian's other son, and Marv K.E. Vivian, as well as Christopher Davis. And so at this time, please come forth, and I'd love to make this presentation to you. The Lieutenant Governor also gave you, let me find it.
That's my signature.
A resolution as well. And for Peace I Rise was getting one as well. So, so please say a few words. You want to say? Okay.
Good afternoon. Just want to thank everybody from Dad. He's 95 and not getting around like he used to, but he really appreciates everything and everybody that has done so much for him and touched him in certain ways. Everybody say thank you.
Amen. And to your other son, this is the resolution from the Senate.
Well, in actuality, I'm not his son, I'm his nephew.
Okay.
But I'd like to just say that CT has contributed so much to the civil rights movement. And it's such an honor for the city of Atlanta to have such giants that made history in the United States. And for that, we thank you for recognizing the contribution of Dr. C.T. Vivian. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And lastly,
on behalf of Emory University, who holds the Octavia and Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian papers, we want to thank you for this recognition. It is an honor for us to recognize one of our national treasures. I'm Dr. Carol Henderson, the Chief Diversity Officer at Emory University. Thank you.
thank you. And here you go. Lastly, if you will. Quickly, please. They're going to make me sit down.
For Peace I Rise, LLC, we've been charged with putting together a story of a family, the story of a husband and a wife, the trials, the sacrifices that are made and were made by our great men that forged towards equality, inclusiveness, and all in the name of peace and love. I am very happy to be part of the organization that's putting this musical together, and having been asked by Christopher Davis, the executive producer, to participate in this endeavor. And I definitely appreciate Senator James for recognizing the importance of our effort and helping us to bring this to fruition. Thank you.
Let's go over here and take some pictures.
Please. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the resolution for our next special guest?
Senate Resolution 763 by Senator Jackson II and others. A resolution recognizing February 26, 2020 as Community Midwives National Alliance Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas a community midwife is a specialist in low-risk maternal care. And whereas community midwives have close relationships with their clients and emphasize total wellness. And whereas having the help of a community midwife is a safe option for low-risk women. By practicing preventative care, midwives could help save millions of dollars for taxpayers, families, and the healthcare system. Whereas Georgia-certified community midwives have met the International Confederation of Midwifery Standards, recommended as a safe option by the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and globally by the World Health Organization. And whereas community midwives offer hope, expertise, and exemplary opportunity to impact maternal well-being in the year of the midwife and the nurse. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize February 26, 2020 as Community Midwives National Alliance Day at the state capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Chair would like to call upon the senator from the 2nd to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is a very important day for the history of Georgia. Today is Community Midwives National Alliance Day. These direct entry midwives are healthcare professionals who are in the business of saving lives. The hallmark of midwifery emphasizes community-based interpersonal relationships, health promotions with preventive care, health education, community care, and the delivery of healthy babies. Community direct entry midwives is a safe option for low-risk pregnancy in our state, in our country, in our great union. The World Health Organization states that nurses and direct entry midwives are the backbone of healthcare delivery systems for the delivery of infants and the aftercare of mothers. Midwives play an important part in the healthcare delivery system for an entire nation and in this entire population. To speak more to this is Ms. Karina Edwards.
Thank you so much for having us today. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you, Senator Jackson. I'll first introduce the midwives who are here with me. I'm Karina Edwards, Salama Abdullah, and we have Nazra Smith, Saran Henderson, and Hanifa Shotes Bey. And we have some midwives in the stands as well. Thank you so much. Midwifery is a centuries-old practice. Baby Jesus was delivered by a midwife. And midwives really do a really important thing in the community and have been for over 400 years. In Georgia alone, our history, there were 9,000 midwives, and they served all families. And nationwide, over 70% of the U.S. is using direct entry midwives right now. All of our neighboring states use direct entry midwives that are fully licensed. We have Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, all the surrounding states. Even Alabama became licensed last year. And so it's really becoming more progressive, but globally, the World Health Organization says that more direct entry midwives are used than anything in the nation, and and there's better outcomes than Georgia in war-torn nations as well as developing nations. Georgia is 50th ranked. So community midwives want to be a part of the solution, working with physicians, the telemedicine, to be the boots on the ground, to be able to touch and feel and really connect with people in rural and urban areas. With 93 counties without obstetricians, with hospitals closing, we really are the solution. And some of us here, there's some here that have been doing it for 40 years, 4,000 babies, and really good outcomes. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology has stated that direct entry midwifery is a safe option, and the International Confederation of Midwives and those standards are met with certified community midwives. So we're asking you to support community midwives and Senate Bill 334 and helping us to bring this to Georgia. Thank you so much.
We're going to take some pictures.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the resolution for our next special guest?
Senate Resolution 834 by Senator Miller of the 49th and others. A resolution commending the Home Builders Association of Georgia for its many valuable contributions on behalf of the citizens of Georgia and recognizing February 27, 2020 as the Home Builders Association of Georgia Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas the Home Builders Association of Georgia is a part of a three-tiered federation of organizations that share a common mission of serving the housing industry and providing expansive opportunities for all consumers to have safe, decent, and affordable housing. Whereas the Home Builders Association of Georgia has represented its communities with dedication, professionalism, and high standards. And the association's vision and leadership have brought light and inspiration to countless individuals in the state of Georgia. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend the Home Builders Association for its many valuable contributions on behalf of the citizens of Georgia, recognize February 27th, 2020 as a Home Builders Association of Georgia Day at the state capitol, and extend best wishes for the future. That completes order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the pro tem to introduce some very special guests that we have here today.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the Georgia Home Builders Association here with us today. And the Home Builders Association and home building in general is an important part of our economy, but it's also an important part of our culture. A few weeks ago, I heard an incredibly wise man describe a society, and the emphasis that a society puts on what's important is largely circled around what we build. We think about the Justice Building across the street. We think about the Capitol. We think about other significant structures. But our homes are also a significant structure because our homes, a house doesn't make a home. And that's why we have the things that are valuable to us in that house. And that's what makes it a home. We have our family. We have what's important. And the American dream is to own a home. It has been a cliche, but it's true. And the Home Builders Association is an organization that promotes economic prosperity, it promotes quality of life, it promotes love and kindness and security, and those are the things that are important to our citizens and to our families. We're grateful to have them here today for the opportunities they bring for affordable housing, for decent housing, for safe housing. They are incredibly active on both the local, the state, and the national level. And I'd like for the Senate to give the Georgia Home Builders Association a warm welcome. Thank you. And I'd like at this time for Tim to say a few words.
Thank you, Senator Miller and esteemed members of the Senate. It's a pleasure to address you today and a great honor on behalf of the Home Builders Association of Georgia. Last year in the state of Georgia, about 40,000 homes were built. That created $1.4 billion in revenue for the state through taxes and other fees, and about $11.5 billion in local revenue and income. It also created 60,000 jobs in the state of Georgia as well. But what I want to impress upon you today is the crisis that we're in for workforce housing in this state. Any community that is growing in this state is facing this crisis. It's being talked about in Atlanta, in our hometown of Gainesville, many committees, and the difficulty in building a new home for our starter family is just incredible. In Hall County, our starter home, the entry-level home, is at $230,000. You can imagine an income as a young teacher of $45,000 to $50,000 starting out. It's impossible for you to buy a home in our county. They're driving as far as Toccoa and other areas, an hour and a half to commute to Hall County just to be able to live. And I want you to consider that incredible burden on the economy and on the environment of all that driving and the emissions that are created there. But I ask you to support affordable housing, affordable home ownership, and I thank you for your support of that. About 30% of the cost of a new home is regulation induced. So out of a $200,000 home, that's $60,000 financed over 30 years for a homeowner. That's all due to regulation and fees from government level, national, on down to local. So please protect affordable home ownership. It's important. It's important for our firefighters and other people, policemen, our medical community, to have the opportunity to achieve the American dream and the Georgia dream. So thank you for listening to me today, and thank you for supporting home ownership in the state of Georgia.
All right, before we move on to points of personal privilege, I want to take a moment to recognize a special guest with us. Former State Senator John Wiles is with us today. Thank you for coming to join us. Thank you. Any unanimous consents? Chair sees none, hears none. Senator from the 20th must have a really important point of personal privilege. He's had the button pushed for an hour. Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th for a point of personal privilege.
Important recognition. Appreciate you letting me come down here. I have today some of the best and brightest young folks from Lawrence County with us. It's the Lawrence County Youth Leadership Group. They're in the gallery up to my right, your left. I would ask them to please stand and let's give them a warm Senate welcome. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 6th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. It has been less than 24 hours since the last mass shooting in this country, but it doesn't even seem to reach the consciousness of those in this chamber. It has been 7,618 days since Columbine. It has been 4,700 days since Virginia Tech. It has been 2,631 days since Sandy Hook, where 20 elementary children were slaughtered. And now it has been 743 days since Parkland, where 17 innocents were taken from their family. While there has been much said, nothing has been done to protect our children from mass shootings. Maybe it's because of how I grew up and where I grew up. Talk is cheap. What we do is what matters. Since my election 3 years ago, there have been study committees on school safety that refused to consider the role of guns. There was school safety legislation with nary a mention of school shootings. But even that bill was vetoed. And every time there is a shooting, I hear the refrain that this is a mental health issue. This isn't about guns or gun safety. But then the governor this year makes drastic cuts to mental health services. Talk is cheap, and what matters is what we do. So what do? We teach our children to run and hide because we lack the courage to protect them. Ever since I was elected, I have come to this podium on the day that mothers from all over the state come to beg you to consider sensible gun safety laws. This is my third time, and I have felt like the Cassandra of the Senate. In Greek mythology, Cassandra had the ability to utter true prophecies, but was cursed so that no one would ever believe them. So I will repeat what I have said every single year. Doing nothing is no longer an option. Doing nothing has resulted in a world where lockdown drills in elementary schools and churchgoers being slaughtered in the most sanctified of spaces has become commonplace, to the point that legislation has even been filed this year to make it easier to arm parishioners. Y'all need to think about that. The mothers of this state aren't going away. They demand action. Our children demand that we do something. And as always, I am reminded of the psalmist's lament, Psalms 13. How long, Lord, will you utterly forget me? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I carry sorrow in my soul, grief in my heart, day after day? How long? Well, that depends on each of you. I beg you to open your hearts and minds. The women at the ropes, in the halls, in your offices. The mothers here today will not be bowed. They will not go away because they are clear-eyed in their purpose to protect their children. And that is a force like no other. Hear their pleas, and then do what you were elected to do. Lead. Have some courage. Because if you won't do it, then you need to get out of the way. Because inaction is no longer an option. And if you won't protect our children by addressing gun violence, the mothers of this state will. It's past time to turn thoughts into tangible action, past time to turn prayers into common sense gun policies that protect our children. And no doubt we will be held to account for our response, and I pray that we will be. And here's the prophecy part. If the killing of so many innocents will not change our policies, then maybe we need to change our politicians. 2020 is coming. I yield the well.
Chair would like to recognize a senator from the 23rd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to recognize a group here at the Capitol today, the Georgia Association of Court Reporters. They keep the wheels of justice turning. If you see one in the gallery, say hello and give them a hearty thanks from the Senate. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to honor some special people we have with us who will be visiting throughout the day to encourage all of you to hear what they have to say. Moms Demand Action is a grassroots organization that rose from the fears of so many mothers in the wake of the tragic Sandy Hook Elementary shooting in Connecticut almost a decade ago. Made up of brave volunteer activists, Moms Demand Action has grown into a formidable and important organization on the front lines fighting for common sense change to firearms laws. Among their ranks, I'll add, includes our newest Congresswoman from the 6th District, whose powerful call to action to fight gun violence has inspired so many people to join in this fight. This compulsion to action is about the safety of our families and ourselves and transcends partisanship. I'm grateful for them being here with us today and for the work they do every day to keep Georgians safe. I believe there are some here in the gallery. I would ask Moms Demand Action to please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to talk briefly about representation and also good government. According to my math, which I was never really good at, all Senate candidates in 2018 received about 3.5 million votes, with members of the minority party receiving about 47% of that, with a total separation of no more than about 250,000 votes. Yet, when we see the number of bills heard and passed by the minority party, it is a paltry sum. Let me acknowledge that there are certainly some ideological bills on both sides, which may be difficult to hear, but the vast majority of all bills, including those of the Democratic Party, are designed to meet the needs of not only our constituents, but yours, because our constituents, like yours, are middle class, poor, business owners, large and small. Some hate government, some depend on it because of historical discrimination or other factors. But all of these persons reside in all of our districts. All persons are in each district. You may have more of one constituency or one demographic than I do, but we all represent the same people in Georgia. So the bills that we present not only help, quote unquote, our constituents, but just yours, same as yours helps ours. So knowing this, we also have to say that we can do better on how we hear our bills and also have them for up and down votes. In this session, 2019 to 2020, only 7 bills in the minority party have been passed. This year alone, out of 35 passing committee, none have been through the Democratic Party. So in the next few days, Mr. President, we will come in the hope of having our bills not only heard, but also voted upon, because we are grown men and women. We understand that everything cannot pass, but we are ready to meet all arguments with facts and evidence. And we are ready to do something which is really unique, which is actually work in a true bipartisan manner, not just in words when it fits us, but actually in deeds and actions. So we look forward to working and helping all constituents of Georgia. Thank you, and I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd. All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have in the balcony, I believe, members of the Augusta Interfaith Coalition. If you're up there, you want to raise your hands. All right. Welcome to the Senate. This group advocates for the disabled in our community and does much, much more in bringing good relations among the different faiths that make up our community. I want to thank them for coming to the Capitol. It's a tradition, and look forward to seeing them during the day. Thank you for coming.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th for a point of personal privilege. recognize them from the roster.
Okay, well, they were right there in that room. I wanted them to come to the side. Can you please help me come in? Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to commend the Yoruba tribe, and they were recognized February 6th as Yoruba Day at the Capitol, and we were not in session at the time. Come on in along the wall. I'd like to recognize them now. And we did pass Senate Resolution 701. The Yoruba tribe is one of the largest African ethnic groups south of the Sahara Desert, predominantly located in southwestern Nigeria and constituting about 45 million people in the world. And the Yoruba people live around the world, including places like Brazil, Cuba, Portuguese countries, Canada, and the United States. And they make a huge impact on the community right here in the state of Georgia. And the idea of Yoruba Day Festival in Georgia was created in January 2020, and I thank Representative Stovall for presenting them on February the 6th. So at this time, please give a warm welcome to the Yoruba tribe, who are right here to my left. And then many are in the balcony. Please stand and get a warm welcome from the State Senate. We welcome you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 40th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, last session I filed my first bill as a senator, a repeal of the campus carry law. I feel strongly about creating safe environments for our children, and during my campaign, I heard firsthand from many mothers, fathers, grandparents, and students about how concerned and even scared they were by this law. My repeal bill struck a chord with people in my district across party lines. They thanked me, they sent emails, they called me, and I have been asked repeatedly, when will the Senate hold a hearing on the bill? So I have to tell them every time they ask that every time I ask for a hearing on the bill, I am answered with silence. We hear silence when concerned parents ask legitimate questions. Why can't we re-examine a law that allows guns wherever students are? What will lawmakers do to help make sure our children are safe while they learn? These parents, and above all, our children, deserve better than silence. Some of these citizens who are concerned about the campus carry law are here today wearing Moms Demand Action red t-shirts, and they are watching us from the gallery. Some of you will be called out to the ropes to talk to them. Some may share with you their own personal stories of loss as a result from gun violence. For a moment, consider that these moms are here today to share this deep pain with you and to honor you with their belief that you can help save lives. Now, some of you might say, well, Sally, of course I support these moms, but I also have a duty to the Constitution. Well, let's talk about that too. What does it say to engage citizens advocating for change, following the rules, respecting the process, that we don't even care enough to offer a hearing on a bill? They haven't even asked for a vote. They just want to be heard. They want to tell you how it feels to teach in a classroom where a high school student might be hiding a handgun in a locker. They want to tell you about what it's like to send a hormonal 7th grader to middle school, where a casual bump into someone in the hallway could spiral into aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. They want to tell you how it feels to walk their babies into kindergarten on the first day of school with bulletproof backpacks. They want you to guarantee that special interests have no sway in your decisions and your votes. And they want you to be open-minded, compassionate, to agree that we must examine the consequences of our legislative actions in the face of citizen concern. That's all they ask. And I ask you to answer them with more than silence. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you indulging me. I know we're pressed for time, but I do want to recognize another outstanding group of young people that are in the gallery with us today. Is Pulaski Tomorrow. These are our future leaders. They're students from Hawkinsville High School, the Westville School, and Fullington Academy. If you're still up there, if you'd stand, please, and wave, and we'll give you a warm Senate welcome. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on here. You've got a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair sees none. Is there objection to adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw? Oh, Mr. Secretary, you have 2 additional resolutions. Will you please read the captions?
Senate Resolution Number 830 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others. A resolution commending Taiwan for its relations with the United States and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there any objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption to the next resolution.
Senate Resolution 831 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others. A resolution commending and congratulating Dr. Tsai Ing-wen upon her election as the 15th President of Taiwan and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? The chair sees none. You've got a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bill on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The question is on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. And the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore passed. I would ask that all senators, please find your seats. We'll stand at ease for one moment, but I would ask that all senators please take your seats and that this chamber cease all audible conversations. In this role of Lieutenant Governor, a little over a year into the role, what you realize is the greatest part of this job is the people you get to meet, the stories you get to hear, the people that influence you. And I'm a firm believer that God continues to put people in our lives that makes a difference. And from the first moment I met Greg Kirk, he started making a difference in my life. A difference because he looked at this world through the lens of trying to be someone of peace, someone of friendship, someone of love. There's nobody in this room, there's nobody in this building that would ever think to have a taste in their mouth that Greg Kirk didn't share love in every room he walked into. And so that alone was a lot. His life and our relationship made a huge difference in my life in this role. But in his toughest days and his toughest hours, his family began to make a difference in my life. I got to watch his beautiful wife, Rosalind, be at his side in the darkest, loneliest hours of anybody's life as he suffered with cancer. I watched something get modeled for me that is priceless. I watched a companion, a spouse, love somebody unconditionally, lift them up, encourage them. I had the pleasure, and I say pleasure because it truly was, to spend some time with Greg Kirk and his family just a few days before he passed. We spent 2 hours laughing, talking, praying. And what I walked out of his home is something I took home to my wife. And I said, Brooke, we're going to have a tough day, just like the Kirks are having right now. I want to be close to you like they are. I want to be at your side like they are. I want you to be at my side like they are. And so as Greg passed, his legacy, his memory will never leave any of our minds in this room. The difference he's made in our lives is way more important than legislation, way more important than bills. It's a difference in who we are as people. And so as I had an opportunity to continue to stay connected with Rosalind and her family, what I realized was she wanted an opportunity to address this group. She wanted an opportunity to thank you. And so I've been looking forward to this day for a while, to be able to bring her forward and to allow her the opportunity to address this group that served her and her family in the time of darkness. It is my honor to introduce to you Rosalind Kirk.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I'm going to do my best to get through this. Senator Utterman said, you know, talk about the happy times. And I've written down a lot of things. But I'm going to start with the happy times. I met my husband here 20 years ago. We both worked on the other side of those ropes. We were advocating for individuals who had developmental disabilities. We were their voice because they didn't have a voice. Greg and I, we met. We worked for different companies. He had his own. Our paths didn't cross again for another 5 years. And at that time, we were both single. And it was just like the Lord brought us together. And we blended a family. And we have 7 beautiful children. They're not his, they're not mine, they're ours. We have 10 beautiful grandchildren we have been blessed with. And they loved their G-Papa. But Greg loved serving here in this Senate with each of you. I probably can tell you a story about each one of you, little funny things. He had a passion, and his passion was people. Greg loved the Lord, and he served the Lord, and he served our family, and he served this state with great honor. And he never wavered on his morals or his values, no matter how angry he may have made someone. He stood on that. He stood on his faith. And he knew that the Lord would see him through. When we got this diagnosis, it was not what we had planned. He had planned to serve here for 10 years, and then we were going to travel, and we were going to enjoy our grandchildren. And he faced that doctor at Emory when he gave him that diagnosis, and he said, Mr. Kirk, you'll live 3 months with no treatment. You'll live 6 months with treatment. And Greg looked that doctor in the eye and he said, you cannot scare me with heaven. As I'm sitting in the corner, crying my eyes out because I knew I was losing my soulmate. He never complained. He never talked about how bad he was in pain. He hid it so well. As he sat and he talked to our children, and he told our children his diagnosis. Of course, they were all very upset, but he explained to them that either way, he was going to be a winner. That he was going to be a winner if the Lord chose to heal him and leave him here. Then he would spend the rest of his days sharing his testimony. And that if the Lord chose to take him home, that he was still a winner because he just got there before we did. Greg said he was honored to be able to share the time that he had left with his family and with his friends and his colleagues, because he was able to share personal information and tell us how much he loved us and things that he hoped that we would seek out in our lives as goals, and that he wasn't taken tragically and didn't have that time to give that closure. As we went through treatment, my husband sat and he watched all these people come in and out. And it wasn't him that he was worried about. He was worried about all these individuals who came in alone for treatment, and they had no one. Greg never went alone to treatment. But you would be amazed at the individuals that go for treatment, and they have no one. They have no support. And this concerned Greg. So what does he do? He's a sick man, but he reaches out to the hospital and he says, you have to give those people supports. They can't do that alone. you need to be providing transportation for them. He said, I couldn't drive home after a treatment, and I know they can't, but they're doing it anyways. So, of course, our hospital stepped up and started seeking out what they could do to help these individuals. But what most impacted my husband the most was our grandchildren. He watched our grandchildren begin to grieve at diagnosis because he couldn't play with them anymore. He couldn't take them to the farm. They couldn't crawl up in his lap and love on him because his immune system was shot. And our grandchildren were grieving. So Dr. Johnny's son, which is our oncologist, was working on a project where he had also seen, while touring a hospice facility, that there were children and young people in these families that no one was offering any supports to. So Dr. Johnny's son, Yash, and Greg sat down in our home on multiple occasions, and they formed a nonprofit. My husband's sick, but he's thinking about others. It wasn't himself. And they formed the Long Journey Home When Children Grieve. They provide supports, books, age-appropriate books, literature, online videos to help children understand the cancer process. Do you know how hard it was for us to even find a book to explain to our 5- and 6-year-old grandchildren what was wrong with their GPAPA? There's not many out there. But thanks to Greg and Yash and reaching out to others, there are other books out there now. And they're available through this nonprofit that can be sent out to families who are suffering from stage 3 and stage 4 cancer. Even through the end, Greg was thinking about everyone but himself. The Lieutenant Governor and 9 of you senators came to visit Greg on December 20th. And he was so excited. He got up that morning, he wanted his shower, and he was ready, and he was going to rest in his chair till you arrived. And he enjoyed visiting with you and laughing and reminiscing and being able to tell you some of his last wishes on bills that he was wanted to carry this year, that he wanted passed. And I honestly believe that my husband held on to be able to tell you those things and be able to say his goodbyes to you. Our family cannot thank you enough for your cards, your texts, your phone calls, your flowers, your words of encouragement, but most of all, your prayers. Your prayers have carried our family through. You have kept us strong, and we know that. Thank you for being there for the Kirk family. We have been honored to be a part of the Georgia State Senate and the General Assembly. And we're honored to call you our friends and our extended family. And just because Greg isn't here, please don't hesitate to still come see us. Please continue your prayers. Every morning when Greg was serving, before he left, we stopped and we prayed together for each of you and the things that you were facing. I carry you in my prayers each day because I know this year has been many changes and there are many challenges. But know that you are in my prayers daily. And there's 2 scriptures that I'd like to share with you today. 2 Chronicles 15:7. But as for you, be strong and courageous, for your work will be rewarded. 1 Peter 4:10. God has given each of you a gift. From his great variety of spiritual gifts, use them well to serve another. I know without a doubt that Greg Kirk was rewarded for his faithfulness and his good works when he entered those gates of heaven on December 22nd. Thank you so much for having me today, and I love you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. I want to thank the Pro Tem for those flowers of purpose. The yellow is for remembrance, and the red is for love. And thank you for those words, and you are welcome here anytime. Okay, we're now going to move on to the rules calendar. We are now going to move on to the rules calendar. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 316?
Senate Bill number 316 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Title 43 of the OCGA relating to professions and businesses, so to provide for military spouses licensed in other states to practice certain professions and occupations, to obtain a license by endorsement to practice in the state, to provide for definitions and for other purposes. Mr. President, on February 21st, 2020, the Senate Committee on Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Thompson, Chair. Mr. President, Veterans and Military and Homeland Security offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 316, a bill to be titled an act to amend Title 43 of the OCGA relating to professions and businesses, so as to provide for military spouses licensed in other states to practice certain professions and occupations, to obtain a license by endorsement to practice in the state and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th to present Senate Bill 316.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to move quickly as we just came out of that emotional time. This is Senate Bill 316. Senate Bill 316 simply does this. Currently, we have permissive law allowing, or permissive posture allowing military families been deployed to our state, the spouses, to have their license recognized. All this does is codify. The reason we have a substitute is when we were going through committee, we had some concerns from various groups. They wanted to make sure that compacts supersede that. They wanted to make sure that our standards were highest in our state. We implemented that. That is before you. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair sees none. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 55, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of Senate Bill 320.
Senate Bill number 320 by Senator Payne of the 54th and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 1 of Title 42 of the OCGA relating to the Sexual Offender Registration Review Board so as to provide for a penalty for persons who are classified as sexually dangerous predators who fail to verify or update registration information as required by law and for other purposes. Mr. President, on February 5th, 2020, the Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted by Senator Albers of the 56th Chair. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 54th to speak to Senate Bill 320.
Thank you, Mr. President. Friends, Senate Bill 320 is to address a problem discovered by one of my district attorneys within my district. It corrects an omission in Georgia Sex Offender Registry Law. OCGA 42112 provides that all sex offenders shall register or update their registration information annually on their birthday. In addition, a failure to do so, providing false information is a felony offense carrying a 1 to 30-year prison sentence. In addition, for all those offenders classified as sexually dangerous predators, the most dangerous and most likely to reoffend, there is an additional requirement including that they register again 6 months following their birthday, which we refer to as their half birthday. Unfortunately, this requirement contained in OCGA 42114 has no penalty provision, and by default, a violation is therefore only a misdemeanor. SB 320 corrects this omission by imposing the same sentencing provision found in 42112 for birthday registration to the half birthday registration requirement in 42114 for sexually dangerous predators. Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia supports this legislation, and Mr. President, if there are no questions, I will yield the will.
Senator, you have no questions.
I ask for your favorable support.
Does any other senator wish to speak to the measure? Chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption to Senate Bill 377 and the amendment.
Senate Bill number 377 by Senator Jones, the 25th, and others. A bill to be titled an act to amend Code Section 82102 of the OCGA relating to inspections so as to reduce the number of required annual elevator inspections and for other purposes. Mr. President, on February 20th, 2020, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Jones of the 25th, Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 377, a bill to be titled an act to amend Code Section 82102 of the OCGA relating to inspections so as to reduce the number of required elevator inspections per year, to amend Code Section 332311 of the OCGA relating to issuance and contents of license and to place certificate of licensure, so to remove the requirement that certain parties with whom the department contracts to perform administration of certain of the commissioner's duties receive fees for services directly from consumers, to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Ligon of the 3rd, Mullis of the 53rd, Unterman of the 45th, Stone of the 23rd, Jones of the 25th, and Martin of the 9th offers the following amendment number 1 to amend Senate Bill 377 by inserting an before the on line 13 and adding the following language. Provided that the inspection of such equipment where found within facilities governed by Code Section 32913 shall occur once during each 6-month period. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 25th to speak to Senate Bill 377.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I bring to you Senate Bill 377. This is a Department of Insurance bill that they asked me to bring. Currently, most states require 18 months to service or inspect elevators. For quite some time, the state of Georgia has asked that we have 2 inspections done in a year's time. The the Insurance Commissioner's Office feels like they could inspect more locations if they were just required to have one 12-month cycle, one inspection per 12-month cycle to achieve that goal. They think the 2 inspections is limiting their ability to inspect more locations around the state. There's a friendly amendment to this. This doesn't prevent them from being able to use outside vendors to help with the inspection process. This doesn't eliminate individual private companies for having their own elevators inspected. Most of them are private entities, or most of the time their insurance is going to require them to have some sort of inspection. So all this does is give the Insurance Commissioner's Office a little more leeway and hopefully allow them to be able to get out to more locations and to inspect, as opposed to being limited to having 2 locations. So I'll take questions, and like I said, we got a friendly amendment that I'm for. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to.
You have a couple of questions. The chair recognizes the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes, sir.
Senator, does this bill in any way allow any departments to get their funding around the general fund to somehow?
No, yeah, I know that was something that was said. This all the fees still go to the general fund and get administered through the appropriation process like always.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
I do.
Sir, on line 13, we change the payment of fees from being shall be paid to may be paid, and I just wanted to understand that change.
When they do use outside vendors, they wanted to be able to track those dollars being paid. Because there was an issue a few years back with an outside vendor that no one was able to track it, so they used it to May so that they can track it better on their accounts receivables.
All right, thank you, sir.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And like I said, I had a friendly amendment, so
I will close right now after, and ask for your
Chair-
favorable consideration.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to his amendment. Oh, there he is.
Thank you, Mr. President. Needed to make a correction to the amendment. We're amending the committee substitute to 377, and that correction is being noted from the podium. This amendment is being offered to address a problem that we have in one of the MARTA transportation system, our public transportation system that many people rely on to get to work. And many of those people are handicapped people. They can't drive, and they rely on this to have a normal life. In many instances, the elevators in this system, they do not function, and they do not function for days and weeks and months on end. And this should not be the case. Now, all this amendment does is say that these elevators in the MARTA system are going to be inspected every 6 months. Now, I want MARTA to know that this is being generous, because the current law is that they're to be inspected every 6 months. But yet, for days and days and weeks and months on end, these elevators aren't working. And these people with disabilities, they have to get on the train and go the wrong way so that they can get on an elevator that'll get them to the train that'll carry them back past their house to go to the right way so that they can get off and go to work. And that's just not right. And I would just suggest to this body that if this problem is not fixed and it continues, that maybe we need to put some penalties if these elevators continue to be out of order for more than 10 days. I don't know, $500 a day, $1,000 a day, something so that we can get it right and this system can work right for the people that it's supposed to serve. Mr. President, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th for a question.
Would the senator yield?
Yes.
Senator, is it not true that other than the fact that the mobility in having to go from station to station and the increased time and inconvenience, isn't it also true that they are going in these elevators in wheelchairs, walkers, and canes, and that unfortunately they're not very clean, that there is a lot of excrement, and when they're in the wheelchair, they're using their hands to roll the wheelchair, and the conditions that they're in is not acceptable. Is that
Senator,
not true?
you're exactly right, and it wouldn't take much more to get an amendment to go ahead and put that penalty in if this isn't corrected right away, right now. I mean, you know, when this brings something to mind. When my children were younger, my wife would say, we have 5, just to keep them in order. She'd say right away, first time with a good attitude. And that's what we need in this case right here. Right away, first time with a good attitude.
You have additional questions. Do you continue to yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th. He waives. Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The gentleman yield.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate your concerns that you've brought before the body. Have you taken the time to meet with MARTA? They have a full lobbying team down here, including a former colleague of ours from the House, and I wonder how those conversations have gone.
Well, I have not been able to do that, but I'm just bringing it to their attention. Every 6 months is just keeping current law as it is. They have an opportunity to do that, but you know, it's not difficult to go out and see the condition of these elevators. It's commonly known, and it's something that should frankly be addressed, and I hope that it will be addressed.
For the yield.
I'll yield for one more question.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
because I wanted to ask you to address the fact that the inspections are done by the Labor Department of the elevators across our state. We've been doing them every 6 months, isn't it true? And we inspect the personal care homes, I think, every year and a half. This is not asking MARTA to do the inspection. You're asking the Labor Department,
Right.
whose funds have been cut in the budget,
I'm also,
to do this inspection. That's what this bill.
But I'm also directing this at MARTA because they're the ones that are driving the train. They're driving this operation, and they're the ones that need to fix this for the people that rely on it. And with that, I'll yield the well.
But they
Mr.
don't.
President.
Senator has yielded the well.
I'm not sure this is at all appropriate.
For what purpose does the senator from the 36 rise?
I didn't get to complete
I
my
heard
line
you
of
continuing
questioning, and
after
so
the
I'm going
question.
to
Senators yielded the
make
well.
that comment. Thank
Does any
you.
other senator wish to speak to the bill or to the amendment? Chair recognizes the minority leader. For what purpose does the minority leader rise? State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the department who studies and regulates this industry did not ask for a carve-out, meaning that they probably saw no special need for one?
Certain the gentleman knows of what he speaks. For what any other senator wish to speak to the bill or the amendment? The chair sees none. We're going to take up amendment number 1. To start with, is there objection to amendment number 1? There is objection. All those in favor of amendment number 1 will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine.
Parliamentary inquiry. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true with this amendment, all we're asking is for MARTA to take care of their facilities and especially to look out for the disabled community? Is that not true?
I'm certain the senator knows of what she speaks. For what purpose does the senator from the 36 rise?
Isn't it true that the language of this amendment tells the Labor Department to do the inspection?
I believe that's up to each and every member to read the amendment on their desk.
It's in black and white.
On the adoption of amendment number 1, the yeas are 35, the nays are 19, and the amendment is adopted. All right, we will move on to voting on the bill. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question now is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 45, the nays are 8. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes our distinguished majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 9 o'clock
9 o'clock on Friday, 28 February 2020.
The Majority Leader has emphasized 9 a.m. Mr. Secretary, please read the announcements.
Rules will meet upon adjournment in 4:50 cap. Government oversight is canceled. Higher education will meet in 4:50 cap at 1 p.m. Finance will meet in Mez 1 at 2 p.m. Insurance and labor will meet in 310 CLOB at 2 p.m. Regulated industries and utilities will meet in 4:50 cap at 3 p.m. Science and technology is canceled. Judiciary will meet in 307 CLOB at 4 p.m. And transportation has been canceled. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Any senators wish to make an announcement? Chair sees none. Just as a quick reminder, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Friday, February 28, 2020 at 9 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it, and the Senate stands adjourned.